Welcome to part 2 of my Why I'm Not a Feminist video response to a letter Lauren Southern received, where I will be going through it bit by bit, addressing the flaws and claims made within the letter. And now the continuation.
Feminists remain silent on the issue. Almost half the domestic abuse victims in the US and Canada are men. Yet there are no safe houses for them, no court advocacy programs, no subsidized counseling or legal care like women. Despite being half the victims, they are basically ignored.
Actually, Lauren, a long history feminist analysis of gender does give us a pretty profound insight into a lot of these male deaths. In particular, feminists demonstrate how norms of femininity and masculinity entrench ideas about appropriate male and appropriate female behavior, which deeply shape the conditions of these male deaths.
While it is very nice of feminists to give analyses of why these things happen, the feminist outlook stems from feminist theory that if only men acted more like women and weren't afraid to act like women, these things wouldn't happen. The statement still stands: if feminists were trying to change this, they would be providing more help in these areas than just writing books about them.
Take the issue of combat deaths, for example. Feminists have written extensively about gender and war, pointing to how norms of masculinity are deeply implicated in producing a society in which men are expected to embody sacrificial stoicism, masculine physical virility and strength, while women are expected to be weak, passive, and in need of male protection.
Two things here. One, I disagree that women are expected to be weak. That isn't a societal expectation at all when it comes to strength or lack thereof when it comes to women in our society. She has the benefit of choosing to be independent or rely on a man for support. It's much more taboo for him to rely on her. And two, writing a book on the issues is only half of it. You can tell what is important to a movement by where the money flows. Walking the walk versus talking the talk. As for the citations, it comes to no surprise that there are feminist books and studies out there that say it's men's fault that men suffer. Sounds a lot like victim blaming to me.
As a means of illustration, though, feminist Iris Marion Young has written about this as the logic of masculine protection. She writes, in this patriarchal logic,
she alluded to patriarchy.
So according to this, Bigfoot is real.
Exposing men the role of the masculine protector puts those protected, paradigmatically women and children, in a subordinate position of dependence and obedience. Feminists have challenged this logic of protection in multiple contexts, pointing both to how this robs women of agency and how it shapes male participation in war and subsequent injury and death.
You mean the same call to aid like we see from He for She or White Ribbon? Action versus lip service. Besides, this is the typical men are doing it to themselves argument, which dodges the issue at hand and doesn't address it properly.
Cynthia Daniels' book, Exposing Men, deals extensively with the way that male soldiers, and specifically their reproductive health, are injured, and how ideas of masculinity also contribute to the lack of medical help men seek for these injuries. Trust me, Lauren, feminists are writing about this.
A book to me, like a UN speech, is lip service. It acknowledges the issues without actually having to deal with it. You can tell what the movement really cares about by how it spends its money, of which women get the lion's share when it comes to governmental funding.
I'll just add on the note of male combat deaths, though, part of the reason it's disproportionately men is because sexist policies of the US military have historically barred women soldiers from combat roles.
That's another look at history argument. The military's current makeup is still disproportionately male. A large portion of this is due to women's choices, and it isn't necessarily a bad thing. Nothing is stopping women from joining if they want to, though. Men will still be the majority victims of combat. This is just a matter of fact, not a matter of victimization.
If you want equality in soldiering, you might want to check out some feminists like Cynthia Cohn or Megan McKenzie, who have both written persuasively about the myth that women can't fight and challenge the exclusion of women from combat positions.
I don't think there has ever been a recent argument that women couldn't fight. The military is changing and allowing women who choose to fight can. Men, though, who join the military don't always have a choice. So here we have an example of women can choose where men have no choice outside of not joining at all.
To your other examples, workplace death, suicide, and murder, there are also feminists who illuminate how notions of masculinity shape our labor forces, and the willingness of workers to use safety equipment.
OSHA might take exception to that. Workplace deaths are not necessarily because there is a lack of use of safety equipment. Despite the use of safety equipment, there are still accidents, and those jobs are disproportionately filled with males. You hear feminists talk about this mythical glass ceiling when there's a huge gaping hole in the ground filled with men women are not interested in filling.
Such as my college, Ariel Hayes, who examines masculinity and worker safety in the largely male natural gas workforce of Pennsylvania. Or Miles Groth, whose book, Boys to Men, The Science of Masculinity and Manhood, describes how stereotypes about what it means to be a man impacts high suicide rates among young men. Groth argues that feminist efforts to abolish restrictive gender norms offer vital pathways to address the problem.
Suicide is a much larger issue and cannot be reduced to something so simple as, well, it's because men are told to be a man. That is entirely oversimplistic and reeks of projection. However, it would seem that when men want to address these problems, feminists march against us and we are only allowed to discuss these issues under the umbrella of feminism, or we get attacked.
There are others who discuss this connection too. Just Google it. You can also Google masculinity and crime/gangs to help think through the ways feminism could be a helpful way to understand the male murder statistics. I also recommend Melissa Wright, who has written about murder of both men and women in Mexico through a feminist lens.
Oh, you mean like the teach men not to rape mantra, as if this was some new fantastic thing that was recently thought up because of feminism. Anyway, what you have proven is lip service, but you haven't proven action. Maybe what we need to do to resolve the many problems of the world is just write a book. I have a few books I suggest reading as well. Who Stole Feminism by Christina Hoff Sommers, War Against Boys by Christina Hoff Sommers, The Myth of Male Power by Warren Farrell, Men on Strike by Helen Smith. Anyone can write a book. Subscribe, like, comment. Till next time.